what's going on, guys? Welcome to a very special episode of the Horrorble podcast, where we like to bring you a very face value view on horror movies. You can reach out to us on Twitter and on email. Our Twitter is at HorrorableCast. That's HORRORBLE cast. And our email is horriblepodcast@gmail.com. I'm Devin Arnold, and I'm here with my co-hosts as usual. First off, Manton, how are you doing, and are you excited about this episode?
Devin, I'm doing wonderful, and I'm quite excited.
That's great. And Brandon, a.k.a. Blootster, how are you feeling?
Oh, you know I'm so good. I'm actually a little nervous, but I always get that right before an interview, so I'm totally pumped.
Yeah, I think we're all a little bit excited about this one, and that's an understatement. So finally, Dylan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a rainy, nasty little day, but I am jacked up on coffee, and I've got a brand new mic, so I couldn't be happier. I'm really excited to be doing this.
That sounds pretty awesome. And finally, we have a very, very special guest, the director of The Canal, which is a Horrorble crew favorite. We all four loved it.
You'd call it a gym, even.
Kavanagh. Is it Kavanagh or Kavanagh?
Yeah, it's Kavanagh. Yeah, you got it right.
All right, we did get it right. Awesome. So, yes, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Good to be here.
We are very, very pleased and honored to have you. And to give the listeners an idea, what time is it and where are you coming in from? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Dublin, Ireland, and it's 11 minutes past 7 in the evening.
Right.
So it's about 20 minutes to my bedtime or so. So, if I fall asleep soon, So.
Just doze off mid-interview.
Sounds about right. Oh, man. But, yeah, so we are based out of Louisville, Kentucky in the States. So it is just 2 p.m. here, and it's a kind of dreary and cold, rainy day. Is the weather okay on your side?
No, it's never good in Ireland, so we're used to it. We get one sunny day a year, and we all celebrate that day. It's a national holiday.
It's actually really funny. It's just like that in Seattle. I don't know if it's like that for you, but in Seattle, if the weather clears up for a single day, they let kids out of school. It's like a huge occasion.
Yeah, no, we never get good weather, so we're well used to it, though, Rain every day. It's great.
I feel like
it's like living in Blade Runner, actually.
Oh, man.
Oh, my gosh. I'm so glad you just made that reference.
I'm only joking. It's we get two sunny days a year.
Oh, man.
Oh, I don't want to sell
better.
it short. Did you guys actually see that Blade Runner's coming back to theaters next year?
That's incredible.
Is it going to be a re-released version, or like the Ridley Scott director's cut, or what?
I don't know. I actually just blacked out because I got so excited. So I didn't actually read anything it said. It just said Blade Runner 2015 theater. So I don't know if they're just going to put the same movie out or what.
To be fair, Blooster might have hallucinated the whole thing.
Probably. I was probably dreaming.
All right, well, let's get right into it. We discovered you and your movie, The Canal, recently, and we all four premiered it together and watched it, and we absolutely loved it. That's the first movie we saw by you. And just a kind of general question, we were all very curious kind of where you got your inspiration from, where that was drawn from.
Well, it's always hard to talk about because it doesn't ever come from any one place, but I always wanted to make a film about a cinema archivist, because I love early cinema, and I always thought an archivist would be a great protagonist for a film because he investigates for a living.
Right.
He investigates the past, and this is essentially what the character in the film is doing. He's investigating into how the house he lives in, its past, and he's investigating his own past too. And also as well, I wanted the chance to recreate those old films as well, which was always an ambition of mine. And we did that by using a camera from 1915 and using 35mm film and running it through it. So there was a lot of stuff. And also, I made another horror film back in 2007 for very, very little money called Tin Can Man.
Yep.
And I enjoyed the process so much that I just was dying to get back to the genre. With horror films, you can just do anything you want. You can push the medium to breaking point almost. And you can push the sound, the vision, the editing. You can be experimental as you want. And I was really dying to get back to that.
It seemed like a very awesome and open genre to kind of work with. And that being said, you kind of indicated, are you not generally, do you not refer to yourself as a horror director, or do you just do all kinds of genres?
I just do all kinds. I mean, the two previous films I made to the Canal would be considered art house films, I suppose.
Okay.
They were family dramas, quite slow, but full of mood as well, and moments of different types of horror. So horror is my favorite genre because, again, you can experiment with it, and also my memories from childhood are full of watching horror films. You know, some of my most vivid memories of watching films have always been horror films. And for me, I don't differentiate. For me, there's no difference. They're all just good and bad films, you know. So
I feel like we agree with that.
Yeah, I would say so.
I think that's most of our approach to it. But I gotta say, I'm really glad that you decided to stick with horror for at least 2 films.
I think we all are too. The movie was so
of course.
genuinely terrifying.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Tin Can Man, and we actually just watched that last night.
I believe I'm the only one who hasn't seen it yet. Yeah.
Yeah, we just ordered it recently because we fell upon the Canal only a few weeks ago, and then we decided we had to order Tin Can Man and watch that. Mm-hmm. We kind of asked you that question about the Canal. Where did Tin Can Man come from? Because you said that would be your first horror movie, right?
Yeah, that was my first attempt at a horror film. I think it was from living in an apartment here in Dublin. Yeah. Actually, I actually still live in that apartment where that film was filmed.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
And it was the idea that I didn't know who my neighbours were, and I found that terrifying. That nobody talked to each other in the apartment, and anyone could knock on my door and say they were my neighbour, and I believed them, you know.
Sure.
And what if you let someone into your house and they wouldn't leave? You know, it was just the terror of that. That's where that started.
You know what? And that's really cool. To me, the movie played out almost like a nightmare.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
that's what the idea was. I mean, same with the Canal. I wanted to create the feeling of a nightmare. You know, I think film does that very, very well. The visuals in Tin Can Man especially were meant to look like a nightmare. There's nothing realistic about it at all. Using very, very wide angle lenses. The Canal is different in that it fools you into or you're not quite sure what is real and what isn't, you know. Right. But at the end of it, I think you're very, very much in the main protagonist's head by the end of the Canal. But it should have the mood of a nightmare as it goes along. And by the time you get to the very end of the Canal, you're in a total nightmare, and that's why some of the images at the end of the Canal they're very raw and uncensored, because I think in nightmares there is no censorship. There is no sense. When you dream something, you have no control over it. And I think that explains why one image, which I don't want to give away, is as explicit as it is. Because in nightmares, that's the way it happens. You don't have any control over it.
Yeah, we all know which one you're referring to.
I just want to say that I don't know if it was the environment I was in. I was in the woods at like 5 a.m. watching that movie, but I almost cried during what the scene I'm pretty sure you're talking about.
You brought a group of grown men to near tears. It was so.
It has actually most men are disturbed rather than women, and it's very strange, you know.
Oh no,
it seems to really get men, but some women it doesn't bother them at all.
That is hilarious that you say that, because we experienced that exactly. I think that was much more terrifying watching as a man than I think women.
We had a few women in the crowd, and I don't think any of them were nearly as phased as I was.
Yeah,
I mean, I said at the end of it after we'd seen it, I was like, I haven't blinked for 5 minutes, and it was legitimately true. I was still trying to process everything.
And that makes sense, because there's also very real fears and nightmares of course, having like a wife that you love, you know, having an affair, and then her winding up dead. I mean, those are just fears that are outside of like the terrifying imagery and the raw images that you were just referring to.
Yeah, but they're a key into it, though. You know, they're and they're very male fears as well. I want to kind of explore that kind of dark side of the male psyche. You know,
I think that's really cool, because a lot of times males are like the power figures, and I feel like you almost kind of took that away.
It strips it away. Yeah, definitely. I was
and that's why I think Rupert was so good for it, because he has the facade of, or he has the appearance of a very together person, and he's a very handsome guy as well, very charming. But he also has a beautiful vulnerability as well, which the character needed. He needed to be fragile. He needed to be,
for sure,
you know, easily crack.
Right.
You coaxed some really great performances out of the actors in this movie, and I just kind of wanted to mention Callum Heath, I think his name is, right, the little boy. And I think we all said it kind of at the beginning that, you know, a lot of movies, it's kind of make or break whether the child actor is any good. And, you know, you make the decision to make a lot of the reactions and everything kind of focus on him, but it paid off. I think he was great. Was there anything in particular you did to kind of work with that?
Well, he actually never knew what type of film he was in. For him, it was just a game. I mean, he was only 5 years old when we shot the film. Wow. We actually looked at we auditioned 300 children.
Oh my goodness!
and we went to casting directors went to different schools, and I wanted a child who had never acted before, and he never had,
Wow.
But the moment I auditioned him, and he was able to improvise, he was so intelligent. I knew it had to be him.
Wow.
But actually, he could take direction better than some adults I've worked with in the past. He could tell them the minutest little change in dialogue, and 10 minutes later he'd remember it. Only 5 years old, absolutely amazing. But what we'd do is we'd film his scenes, his shots, and then take him out of the room, and then bring all the scary stuff in. So it was fine for him to act scary. It didn't mean he actually had to be scary, if you know what I mean.
Sure, yeah.
So for him, it was just a game, and he was so sorry to see it end, basically,
Oh.
And he got really attached to Rupert as well, and that's something that I wanted. I wanted him and Rupert to hang out together and to be real
Right.
close father and son. And they were really close, and it paid off. I think he was so natural. I'm so glad I picked him.
I feel like you could feel that. Yeah, there was like a closeness between them that maybe wouldn't have happened with a less,
It
correctly.
did feel very natural.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, everything in the movie felt very, very
So
organic.
is it safe to assume that he has not seen this film yet?
I think he has it booked for 17 years' time. I think
Very, very mature. Yeah.
he has his ticket anyway. His parents have seen it, and they were fantastic. They were really supportive, and they loved it. They're very proud of him. But
great, yeah.
of course, it must be quite a strange experience for them to watch it, because
I was just going to say that he didn't know what movie he was in. Did his parents know what movie he was going to be in?
Of course. When you audition children, you're all also auditioning and casting the parents as well, because
Right,
the parents have no scruples about it, or no fears. They need to be able to they need to understand what the film is, what type of film is. So I had to explain that to them, and also they read the script, and everything that was in the script is on screen. So there was no surprises that way, And I think he only got scared once at the dark or something, and maybe a bit of shouting or something. But apart from that, it was pure joy for him, to be honest.
I thought it was really funny that you said he didn't know what movie he was in. It just reminds me of Candyman and how they got the soundtrack for that movie. It was one of the most genius aspects of it, but they didn't. The guy who composed the soundtrack didn't actually know what kind of movie it was going
Philip
into.
Glass.
Yeah.
Oh, Philip Glass, yeah. It's a great soundtrack, actually.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
a fantastic soundtrack. It's
Amazing.
my favorite.
Oh, he never saw the film. He just composed the music before. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I think they told him it was going to be some kind of thriller drama.
Like psychological, yeah.
And it was a total
They kind of
horror film.
oversold the movie to him, I suppose. And then I guess he was kind of upset about it afterwards. Kind of regretted it, or
There's
It's one of
everything
his
about
best
that movie.
scores. I have to
Oh yeah.
say.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
fantastic.
Oh, and that score makes the movie. That's actually one of my favorite horror movies, if not my favorite, and definitely Philip Glass. His input helps in that one.
Absolutely, and it adds so much to it, and so unusual for that type of film as well.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Gosh, before we get into that, Jesus, I want to talk about that so bad. But I want to talk about your movies first. You have no idea. But I want to talk about the raw images that you referred to. And I want to know where those images came from, and if they were inspired in any way by certain types of film or genres, I guess you could say. Because I'm a huge fan of like Japanese or Asian horrors, Korean horrors. And I felt like some of the images in the Canal seemed very Japanese-esque, like in a horror movie type image. Was there any inspiration for other types of film when you had those images and stuff?
Well, when you make a film, you can't help but be influenced by other films, And part of this film is about horror films in a way. It's about cinema, because he's a cinema archivist,
Right.
And the way I always saw it, he would know everything about horror films. He's probably seen every horror film ever made,
Right.
So for me, I wanted his nightmares and what possession or whatever is happening to him to have the look of a horror film, if you know what I mean. So it might hark back to Giallo films or certainly Suspiria for colours and stuff like that,
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Japanese horror. I love A Tale of Two Sisters. I think it's a great film. It's one of my favourites of all time. However, I did want to avoid the comparison with the woman and that very Japanese thing.
Yes.
But the problem is, when you cover a woman in black and she's full of mud and stuff, you can't help but be compared to that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it wasn't something I was trying to copy. it just happened that way. So I just went with it, and I think it really works for the film.
Yeah.
And it's
turned out
certainly
great.
unique in its own way. It's not too comparable. It's really, really great and unique. Suspiria. Somebody had a question about the color palette in your movie. Suspiria, I think, also has a very, very interesting color palette. Was that something that was in your mind, in your head when you were making this movie? A designed color palette?
Absolutely. I mean, the main influence for me visually, and me and Pierce McGrail, the cinematographer, we worked really, really closely together months beforehand, planning practically the way we'd shoot every single scene, So we were so prepared, and we planned the colour palette of the whole film as well. And the film references I had for him were Don't Look Now, and was the main one, the use of reds,
right.
And also the gritty look of it as well. And we used actual lenses from the 1970s to give us that extra bit of grit to it,
Excellent.
And the colour palette as well was influenced by that. And also Suspiria and Carrie as well. I love the over the top primary colours in Carrie as well. Carrie's one of my favourite films of all time.
Yeah. Really? I think the original Carrie is terrifying.
Yeah, we just mentioned that.
And I'm actually glad to hear you talk so much.
So moving as well, the film.
Oh yeah, it's hard to watch.
I mean, the prom scene in Carrie, my God, it's so beautiful,
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Where she dances with that guy, it's heartbreaking.
Right.
And but then the horror comes and it's great. I love De Palma as well. A lot of his stuff.
Oh, definitely,
especially his early films.
I'm really glad to hear you talk so much about your inspiration for the visuals in these movies, because when I was watching The Canal, and it definitely hammered it in when I watched Tin Can Man, but the way things look, it looks very well thought out, and it looks very, very conscious. And I was really glad to hear you bring up that you liked old movies because, or classics, or the kind of archival look, because when we were watching Tin Can Man, I couldn't help but feel like that and The Canal both shared kind of historic roots as far as just how things look. And so I'm actually...
I think that man was very much trying to do a noir type look as well, That's why I went for the 4:3 aspect ratio, the all ratio. I looked at a Touch of Evil and the way Orson Welles used wide-angle lenses and that. And that's what I wanted. I want that type of look. I wanted very thought-out visuals in all my films, I think. I mean, if you're going to make a film, the way I see it, you should make it unique looking if possible, or make it unique to you.
Oh, there's no question. Tin Can Man looked very unique. Like, we immediately start out with these very close-up shots of the face, these downlit lights across across people's faces, and it was just, you get into it and you're like, and you start watching it and you realize that it's like fully committed, and it starts to get very terrifying later on because you are so close to the action, and you can't help but be scared and uncomfortable.
I think the budget was only €700 or something like that.
Wow.
Budget €700.
I mentioned that. I was like, this guy. I said this movie is obviously a pretty lower budget for what he did with that low budget, man. It was pretty impressive.
So the crew was me and the cameraman. That was it. I recorded the sound as well.
I saw you were credited for the sound design and everything, and I was like, this is...
Yeah, the sound design
was... the Final Cut Pro, so I edited the whole thing on the free iMovie. And also I did the sound design within iMovie as well, which took me months, but I did it,
That is dedication.
It was great learning process.
And we noticed your name, your last name were in the credits a lot. Did you have a lot of family members helping you out with this?
Oh yeah, I mean the father in Tin Can Man, you mean?
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. My father plays the father in Tin Can Man, so it's I mean, I grabbed anyone who was willing to be honest, and even if they weren't willing, I grabbed them as well.
Sorry, got to do it.
Yeah, he was the father and the clown, right?
And the clown as well. Yeah, I don't know what that says about psychologically.
Sorry, Dad.
Your dad's dedicated, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Gotta appreciate that support. Absolutely.
Yeah. Clowns terrify me. It's one of my fears is clowns. They absolutely terrify me.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common one.
I think so, yeah.
I think that's done in a lot of movies. In fact, I kind of want to segue there and talk a little bit about maybe your favorite horror movies or the ones that you remember, iconic ones growing up. When we did our first podcast here, we went around, we all gave our top 5, even though we're not good at really numbering or listing our top 5, but we did it for the fun of it.
It's tough.
It was a good exercise. and I'm not going to make you do that because that's tough. But we would love to hear just some of your favorite horror movies growing up, or the ones you remember the most. Or...
Formative, maybe.
Right. Yes.
Well, the ones I remember most, actually, the first one I ever remember was I remember I've told the story a few times in other interviews, but I had a fever when I was about 7 years old, and I got up in the middle of the night and looked for my parents, and they weren't in their bedroom, and I went downstairs to the living room, and they were watching Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, no.
And it was that scene where she looks into the crib, and she says, "What have you done to his eyes?" And that amazing Christoph Komeda music comes up.
Right. Yeah.
And it absolutely terrified me, and it stayed with me for all my life, But it terrified me, but also inspired me as well. When I got older, I wanted to make a moment like that. I wanted to make a perfect, scary moment where music and the visuals and the acting is all working together, Right. And there was other moments like that. As I said, when I first saw the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that was a real...
Oh, God, you brought that up.
Yeah.
It's all one of our favorites, at least.
I saw it. It used to be... a long time ago here, say in the 80s or something like that, when I was a kid, they used to do double features, and I was only a kid, but they let me in to see over 18s movies all the time. It was so great, And I saw a double bill of, it was really strange, it was a double bill of Poltergeist and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Actually, it's not the same director. So.
Yeah, but still.
But I never seen anything as visceral as Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The sound was so amazing. I mean, it's actually like being in a nightmare or watching a nightmare.
For sure.
Yeah.
So it's still one of my favorite films of all time, and it's no surprise because it's so well made that someone like Stanley Kubrick was a huge fan of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I hear as well, because it's such a visceral film and it's so cinematic. And another one I remember as well that was always on TV was a film, I can't remember the name, but I think it's called Communion with Brooke Shields. She's only a kid in it.
Huh.
And it's a kind of a slasher movie.
Oh, God, Alice, Sweet Alice, is that?
Alice, Sweet Alice.
Right,
In Europe, I think it was called Communion.
Okay.
Oh, okay. We need to watch that.
I remember visual. I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but visuals from that have stayed with me as well. And also one me and my sisters used to watch over and over again because we loved it so much was Creepshow, the original Creepshow.
Oh, man. Love that one.
Yeah,
Toby Hooper
I still love it so much. It's so much fun, and it's so lovingly made, and has genuinely scary moments as well, I think,
Absolutely.
I always thought it was pretty funny that Toby Hooper also did Poltergeist because it does not seem like it at all.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Furthest cry, yeah.
From what I heard,
I still like Poltergeist. I'm very fond of it.
for sure.
Great little movie.
It just seems like Spielberg was kind of taking the reins on that one more than Toby Hooper.
You're trying to make a family movie. Texas Chainsaw's not that.
Yeah.
I think visceral is such a great word to describe Texas Chainsaw. It just feels so intense and so relentless. And I feel like that movie, I feel like a lot of movies that stick with me have these scenes, like you said, of pure terror that just really kind of almost kind of sum the movie up. And to me, that's the closing scenes of Texas Chainsaw. It just is so like violent and just crazy and manic. And I feel like there's scenes exactly like that in the Canal, for instance, that I will never forget.
And not to keep bragging on you, Ivan, but the Canal, I think, really achieves that. And we, in our first cast, we tended to talk about, the things that make a horror movie for us. And we don't always agree on things on this cast, but this was one of those moments where it just clicked for all of us.
Right.
It hit really kind of every button.
It's such a tough shoot as well, so it's so rewarding to hear the way it's been received as well, So
I've heard nothing but good things.
We had a really small budget and a really tight schedule, and it was so tough, And especially, I only realized how ambitious the film was when we went to shoot it because there's so much, visual effects and prosthetics. I wanted to do everything old style. I wanted to do it, not use any digital stuff if I could get away with it.
We love it.
We used the bare minimum.
We love it. And we have actually a few email questions that we'll come to a little bit later. There's one specifically about that. I wanted to ask you, because we were on the topic of horror movies, and of course we're discussing all these great classics. But just out of curiosity, you're obviously making horror movies now. Are there any horror movies that you can think of that have come out in the past maybe 10 years that really stuck out to you?
Let me see. I loved a lot of The House of the Devil. I thought that was beautifully paced.
Yes.
Yeah, we just talked about that one.
I think,
Yeah, I must rewatch it. I wasn't mad about the ending when I first saw it, but I thought
Seems to be the consensus.
well, to then I thought it was was near perfect. I thought it was beautifully paced, beautifully made, beautifully acted, and so from someone who genuinely loves horror film as well. I think Ty West, that comes across. He really loves it.
Yeah.
Yep.
There was another film I saw. I can't remember the director. I think it's Petty is his second name. It's called Soft for Digging. It's a really, really low budget horror film. And I think it's about an old man living in a cottage, and there's a ghost of a dead child visiting him at night, and it turns out to be a murder in an orphanage or something like that. But that absolutely terrified me. You should check it out if you haven't seen it.
Sounds terrifying.
That's one to review for the next episode.
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it had a great atmosphere and brilliant use of a low budget and sound design as well. And generally I thought it was really fun as well. And I know it got a lot of bad reviews, and was the Sam Raimi film Drag Me to Hell.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah, we love Drag Me to Hell.
I love Drag Me to Hell. It's such a good movie.
It's so much fun, and it's scary as well, and it's beautifully made, and a great soundtrack. Yeah, I really loved it. And a great ending as well.
The ending's amazing. Yeah. Now I want to kind of put you on the spot with another one that I'm sure you've heard of. It's because it was like all the rage. Is Cabin in the Woods.
I haven't seen it actually.
Okay, because that basically it's a massive deconstruction of the genre, I guess, and it's got those. It's mostly got good reviews, but it's more on the comedy side than anything.
Okay.
But if you're interested in the genre, you might enjoy it. I mean, it's just plays on all the tropes and stuff.
I think
I heard a lot about it. Let's check it out.
You might have to. It's more of a comedy, but I think that's one of the things that's fun about horror is it's so dynamic. There's so much going on in the genre. There's all kinds of different avenues to play in. That's what's fun about it.
And I feel like it's made in the same vein almost as like a Drag Me to Hell type movie, right?
Yeah, it's true. Actually, one of the most horrific moments I've seen as a horror moment wasn't even in a horror film. I mean, I remember I saw Ingmar Bergman's Cries and Whispers when I was a kid.
Huh.
And there's a scene in that where the three sisters in it each have an individual dream, and in one dream, one of the sisters, she hears her dead sister calling to her.
Jesus.
And then her dead sister makes her kiss her, oh my God, when I saw that as a kid, it just absolutely terrified me. And Bergman has the power to do that, I think, and there are real horror moments in a lot of his films.
Well, how does it feel, Ivan? I don't know if you've broken into the kind of the bigwigs yet, but you're mentioning these modern directors who are putting out these movies, and I think we would put you kind of up there
for sure
now with this film. Are you planning on sticking with horror, at least for a couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually we're just about to go into development. I can't talk about that much. I'm going into development with a American TV series, horror TV series that I'm writing, and hopefully I'll be directing.
Okay,
very exciting.
Me and Anne-Marie Nocton, the producer of the Canal, are also working. Just started writing another psychological horror film.
Yes.
Awesome.
And also working with another writer in maybe more of a thriller, but it has more horror moments. So there's a lot of horror coming up. Yeah.
Great.
So whether I want it or not, there's a lot. So
well, you're stuck with it now.
No, I want it. It's so much fun, and it feels really right to do. Actually, the film I'm writing for Anne-Marie, the producer of the Canal, is really pushing things, I think, even further than the Canal. And I'm really excited about unleashing it on the world,
Perfect set of
Some of the
words
stuff I'm writing is even frightening me, so I think that's a good sign.
Yeah. Oof, you're making our day right now. That's one of the things I wanted to ask, though. I think you kind of touched on it. Obviously, I'm not a director. I'm just a guy who has the privilege of interviewing sometimes. So I was just wondering, your previous movies, not all of them are horror. Is horror, would you say it's one of the more fun genres to direct? Do you enjoy directing horror films?
Directing is difficult. When you're actually in it, it can seem quite absurd when you're doing it, because basically the actors can't see anything they're supposed to be scared of, because, it doesn't happen that way.
Right.
So basically, it's like working in silent films a little bit. The way I see it is that I'm behind the camera and I'm talking them through it. So, say there's a scene where Rupert is filming at the Canal, and there's a slow push in on his face, and the whole sequence is just 3 shots, but there's a slow push in on his face, and basically it's me behind the camera talking him through what's happening. So at the time it can seem quite absurd, but it works, because it gives something to actor to hear and for pacing as well. So to direct it, it's not that easy, no. But the post-production end, the pure creativity end, is a pure joy, because you can do absolutely anything. But it's quite difficult to direct, I think.
when you say difficult to direct, I wonder if you mean that in several different ways. I was going to ask you, does it take a toll on you psychologically as a person when you're doing this?
No, not really. I mean, maybe tough schedules do sometimes.
Sure,
you know?
sure.
I mean, I remember one day we were shooting this. We had 18 scenes to shoot in one day. Not shots, 18 scenes. You know.
Wow.
So that kind of schedule takes its toll sometimes. Exhaustion. But you know, I wrote it, so you know, nothing phases me when it comes to that. But no, it doesn't take its toll on me. Maybe some of the actors. I mean, Rupert certainly got really into it. You know, and he was exhausted, completely exhausted the time it was over. Not only because of the schedule, because the way I work is I like the actors to get into the psyche of the characters. We create the characters before the film even begins, and I give them a lot of character history to work on, and then I get an interviewer in to interview them in character. So by the time we start, they know their characters absolutely inside out. But when you're working that way, it does take maybe a stressful tone on the actor, or toll on the actor, because they become the character. But I think it's very important for performances, for me, to get the type of naturalistic performances that I like.
That's amazing. I feel like there's a lot of work behind the scenes that you don't see as a viewer that goes into actually making and crafting this piece.
That could not be an easy psyche for him to inhabit either. Good God.
I don't know if I can handle it.
A lot of men never think like that, or never want to think like that, especially about a partner cheating, or what are you capable of, you know. And you know, just tapping into his dark side, basically, you know.
Yeah. That's why, like, when we first started, we were asking a lot about kind of inspiration for the movie, because the whole time I was watching it, I could not help but feel like it was a very personal, almost like a diary. I don't know. I can't speak to your personal life, but I was wondering if there was, outside of visuals and other horror movies, is there anything personal that you kind of inserted into this movie?
Yeah, I mean, in all my films, the way I get real satisfaction out of putting a lot of personal stuff in my films, especially with the art house films beforehand. Before this, I did 2 films that were about my family. But with this, the conversations about dinosaurs that the kid has with his mother and father.
Loved it.
I mean, they're actual word-for-word conversations I remember having with my own mother.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so there's those little things in there as well. And also this conversation where he brings his son. His son is afraid to go to the bathroom on his own, so he says to his father, "Are you afraid of the dark?" And then his father says, "No, you know, there's nothing in the dark." And that's another conversation I remember having with my father as well when I was afraid to go to the bathroom. So it's always good to put very personal things in there. It kind of adds to it for me, you know.
Sure.
I think that's really awesome. And total shout out. When I was a kid, I loved dinosaurs.
The gruesome murder stuff or anything like that is personal, you know, obviously.
Of course.
Yeah.
I was a huge dinosaur lover as a kid as well. I had dinosaur wallpaper all over my walls, and I had like a little dinosaur lamp. I was loving it.
Yeah.
I made my parents read me. Only the cool kids, right? Oh, goodness.
I was wondering if there was a moment in this where you kind of decided, because a lot of the movie plays with, you know, the idea, like you expressed, about, you know, is it real, is it not, what's in his head, you know, how much of this is the character's psyche. Was there a moment where you kind of decided at some point that it was going to be all real or all fake, or did you just kind of land on that middle?
No, I wanted it to be fluid. I didn't want ever to give the audience any answers. I want everyone to have their own interpretation of what happened, and I've heard many different interpretations of the ending, especially.
Yeah.
I know what happened, but that doesn't mean that anyone else's opinion of it or interpretation isn't as equally valid, because that's the type of film I wanted to make, you know.
That's so fun.
I didn't want to give a film where there wasn't all the answers. So no, I mean, there wasn't. I set out to make something that was ambiguous for sure, you know, but not frustratingly ambiguous. Hopefully,
those are the worst when there's nothing to grab onto.
Yeah, it is nice though. You know, having the ability to kind of like think through that and then figure out for yourself what's going on. I love that aspect in horror movies, especially.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You can use
That's
your
what
own
it does
personal
really well, I
reference.
think, you know? And it has that in common with some art house stuff as well, you know. They're not that far apart, I think, with really good horror films.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, before we kind of wrap things up, we do have some emails with some questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
All right. We have one from Rachel, and she asks, I found the aesthetics of the Canal particularly interesting. The framing and the lighting of the scenes were very artistic, but perhaps The most intriguing visual design choice was the use of orange reds and their complementary blue greens. Very specific, she asked, can you talk about your aesthetic choices for the film, especially the colors?
Well, as I said, me and the cinematographer, Pierce McGrath, worked very closely about the colour palette, and it was something that, because we're going more into his mind and into his nightmares as the film progresses, the way we always saw it, that we didn't have to give it any explanation of the colours in it as it went along. They could become as extreme or as unreal as you wanted them to become, because you're basically inside a nightmare. So that was something that we thought out. It would start out very naturalistically, and slowly the colour palette would become more and more broad and more extreme, if you know what I mean. So you see towards the end, sometimes the room is completely red,
right? Yeah,
and that red isn't coming from anywhere really. It just feels right for the scene. Mm-hmm. And also as well, I love films that use color to express emotion and mood and primary colors, especially. I love films like that from the 70s as well. I mean, as I said, Don't Look Now and Suspiria, especially, were a big influence.
Right.
So we thought the color palette through for the entire film.
That's awesome. There was a scene that really sticks with me where your main character and his babysitter have both of their heads against a wall, and your main character is in a very blood red, and she is in a very cool blue.
Right. Yeah.
That scene sticks with me. I don't know why. I thought it was very cool, and I couldn't help but feel like you were trying to display their feelings through color without actually using any words. So I thought that was really fun.
Absolutely, and Pierce is really great that way. We both think that way, and as well, I mean, that's something that's one of the first shots I thought of the film, that low angle shot. And me and Pierce were adamant that we had to get that low angle shot, and in one shot as well. And it was so difficult, and I think we did 7 takes, and we had no time, but we just stuck with it because I wanted to get that scene in one shot, and I think it was worth it. This is my favourite shot in the film, actually.
Hey, I completely
I completely agree. No, I will not forget it. I just thought it was so powerful.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm watching movies like a horror movie or even something as casual as like Drive or something, I just look for the colors to see how they're I feel like colors done consciously tell me more about what's happening than what might be actually being done by the actors. So.
Of course, there's always the thing about that when you do a very low angle shot like that, or you use a very wide angle lens, say in another film, that it kind of, some people have said, it throws the audience because it brings your eye to the visuals. It makes you aware that you're watching a film.
Right.
But with this film, it's about film. It's about a cinema archivist. So I thought, let's just go for it. Let's do.
It paid off.
And I had so much fun with that. It was great.
Yeah, it worked. It worked really well. Excuse me. We have another question. We actually have a lot of questions that are just asking if you're still going to do horror movies. No, like if you're still in the direction of horror, and we have ones about like the ambiguity. So we've already pretty much touched on those enough, so I'm going to skip that. But we have one question that's very specific. It's from Duncan, and he wants to know what kind of technical and makeup talent went into that sewer segment. And I don't want to give away exactly what he's talking about, but...
I'm assuming he's talking about the shot or the
right,
the shot.
Yes,
the number one.
Well, that's all practical effects. It's all prosthetics.
Right.
And there's no digital manipulation there at all. So that was this young company called Bowsy Workshop in Dublin did it, and they were absolutely fantastic on a very low budget. They did. I mean, especially there's a stabbing scene in it as well, and that's all one shot as well. That's they did something with all those type of shots. I just wanted to look at it straight. I didn't want it loads of fast cutting or anything. I just wanted to look head on to the violence to make it as visceral as possible. Yeah. And with that scene at the end as well that this person is talking about, that I don't want to give away. Again, it's about the rawness of it, the uncensored nature of it, and exactly like in a nightmare where you wake up and you think, what the hell did I just dream about?
Yeah.
I was almost...
And he's literally being confronted by the horror of what really happened,
Yeah,
exactly. It's just like the viewers. When we were watching it, there was a very clean movement between prosthetics and actual humans. Like, as someone who hasn't actually made practical effects or digital effects, do you think it's easier or harder to work with practical effects in this case?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. They're difficult to light because if you don't light them in a certain way, they look fake. But it pays off, I think, because I hate when digital. It's lazy, I think, in a lot of films, and
that's what
especially when it throws you out of the film and a bad digital effect or something comes in, you know. So for me, the films I always remember from when I was a kid were. I'll never forget the first time I saw American Werewolf in London. All practical effects, you know.
I love that.
And it's still incredible. It's still amazing.
Yeah, it still holds up till today.
Scene. Oh man! So I mean, they're the type of films that I love and what I wanted to recreate, and just have the fun of doing that. You know.
Yeah.
At least once.
I just feel like there's a lot more love and care that go into practical effects, and I don't want to call people who use digital effects lazy, but I really do appreciate that extra mile. I'm not trying to dog on anybody, but I don't know. I just really appreciate it, and I feel like you can tell, just like in the Canal or any movie that uses practical effects.
It's nice when something's actually there on the camera.
Yes, gives you more to grab onto.
It's not. I mean, it's not that all digital effects are bad. It's just that. I mean, we use some to hide little flaws and stuff like that. It's just that when you're over reliant on them, sometimes it can take away from the film, I think.
I agree.
Right. All right. Well, Ivan, man, we are so grateful and appreciative we could have you. Before we completely wrap up, I just want to make sure. Do you have any final thoughts or plugs you want to give to the listeners?
Shout outs.
Yeah, no, really. I mean, watch the Canal if you haven't seen it, and watch it again if you have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if they haven't figured that out by now, then they don't deserve to.
I actually watched it twice in one day.
You might see something different the second time you've seen it as well.
For sure.
I certainly made it that way. There's a lot of stuff in it that you won't notice the first time, I think.
Yeah, and definitely, guys, check out. If you have not seen Ivan Kavanagh's The Canal, check it out, and check out his other productions too. So, yes, thank you so much, Ivan, and again, listeners, you can always reach out to us via Twitter, and that is at HorribleCast, and also on email, which is horriblepodcast@gmail.com. And on behalf of my co-host and, of course, Ivan Kavanagh, I just want to say thank you one more time. And as always, stay spooky.
Thank you, Ivan.
Thanks, Ivan.
All right, Ivan, thanks.
Thanks so much, man.
Fantastic. It was great to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah,
I just want to say again, thank you so much for staying up to talk to us. I know your bedtime's coming up here, so we really appreciate it.
I'll just get my hot chocolate now and go to bed.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so good.
Enjoy your Ireland weather.
We're enjoying your Ireland weather
Thanks,
here.
Liam.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Take care. Have a good night.
Yeah, bye-bye.
No, you gotta understand this. No, listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me! You listen to me!
What is up, guys? Guess what? We're back. And we just did an exclusive interview with Ivan Kavanagh. That was awesome. Right, guys?
I
was great.
agree. That was awesome.
That was great, and we are so thankful and grateful that he was giving us so much time for that. But yeah, we want to get into a little bit of news and upcoming movies before we officially close off this episode. So first, guys, there's a lot of weird remakes and movies coming out that I'm not sure you guys are ready for.
I'm ready, and I want you to say them.
All right,
Let's do it.
First off, I just noticed this. I'm not sure why I haven't heard of it, and there's like no information on it. But apparently, Friday the 13th is being remade.
Oh, yeah.
Is this another one of those ones where they don't like give it a number? They just renamed
Yeah, it's
it
just Friday the
13th?
13th, which is so funny because
What?
they just remade that movie like what?
Didn't
5-6 years ago?
Didn't we see that together, Devin?
Yes.
What,
Actually-
you guys were kind of impressed by that one. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
It was fun.
It was
I don't
definitely
know.
fun. And you know what?
Was I there for
Why
that?
are they remaking
Maybe
it?
the
Is
lady.
this the one with
the-
Connor where there's a little kid?
no.
sitting next
That's
to him?
that was Halloween.
Oh,
When we
yeah.
saw Friday the 13th, it was great because there was this lady next to us who was so upset that we were like kind of having a good time with it. We were like enjoying it and kind of like laughing a little bit. But then by halfway through the movie, she was doing the exact same thing. Like I think she kind of realized that like that's what this movie
Yeah.
was
Watch
like.
the
It was
movie,
kind of
yeah.
silly, yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that Mitten and I both agree on, and I feel like it's probably the most iconic thing about this film, is that the opening, like
Oh,
the
man.
title bump, is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah. Just the first few minutes. The fact that they have like two sets of teenagers, they kill off
Well-
the first set right away.
No, Daddy
whatever.
loves a good title bump.
I guess we don't have to be spoiler free for that one, but yes.
It's the first 5
The
minutes.
movie
of
starts out like any other movie where they're like a Friday the 13th movie where there's a group of kids and they're being killed off, and you're like, wait a second, this movie just started 10 minutes ago. And then
they're
he just
all
kills
dead.
the last kid, and the fucking title bump comes up, and it's like, oh, the movie hasn't started yet, really. So it's a really cool, just kind of catches you off guard title bump.
But back to this, it's kind of perplexing to me that they are already remaking this one. What?
Do we know who's
Doesn't make
directing?
sense.
Do we know who's directing?
Rob
it?
Zombie. No, I don't know.
You know what though? That would be kind of.
I would watch that.
I would actually watch
Ivan
it.
Kavanagh.
Oh man, if only.
I would love to
You've
see
got some insider
psychological
information.
insides of Jason Voorhees' mind.
God, I would definitely watch that. But no, actually, that's what's so funny. I mentioned that, like, seriously, there's no information, no director, no nothing.
So are you sure?
Well-
You sure that it's actually called Friday the 13th? Or is that the
It's
working
on
title?
IMDb, and it's just literally Friday the 13th.
But you know what
It
the
may
thing
be
is?
Friday the 13th 2 or whatever. Whatever.
It doesn't,
It's
Two the second time around.
It doesn't take much.
Double trouble. Tokyo Drift. Too fast. Too
Two
furious.
Freddy, two Jason Voorhees, too many.
The thing is,
Too
though,
many.
they put remakes up on there all the time. Like, if you look through IMDb, there's a million remakes on there that probably will never come out.
Yeah, and there's a few more we can talk about
A
here.
boy can dream, though, can't he, man?
Is that your dream? Is that the boy's
My
dream?
dream. I want to have 7 remakes of the original Friday the 13th. I
All
want
called Friday the
13
13th.
remakes.
No sequels, only remakes.
Kevin
incredibly-
Bacon's actually playing Jason Voorhees in the remake.
So good.
Actually, that would be pretty awesome. But
right.
yeah, let's keep on going here. We'll go with the ones that are not quite as interesting. First off, Sinister 2.
Who cares?
Still haven't seen the first one.
Don't.
It's not.
No? Okay.
We could talk about it.
I slept through it in the theater. I've never slept through a movie in
Did you
in the
really?
theater.
Wow.
I slept through most of that movie, except for the scenes where
I think I do remember this.
they did the home recordings. Those were pretty good, and I actually would like wake up during those.
Beginning of the movie was, well, I think I want to say it's what, midway?
It has the
Mid to early
it has the
beginning.
worst
It's really
ending
pretty
too.
good.
It has
Oh, the ending
worst
is an absolute fart.
God.
It's just a long, drawn-out stinkhole.
I found it so boring.
That's got Ethan Hawke in it, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you guys keep trashing this movie, we'll never get Ethan Hawke on the podcast.
Hey, man, Ethan, the sweater you wore in that movie?
Can we just talk about the
Ethan
attire?
Hawke is like an actor though who just kind of appears all of a sudden. Like
Right.
I forgot that he's still around, and then boom, Ethan Hawke.
He's like Santa Claus. He's around once a year, and he gives you his gift of his movie. And
And you know what? I do find it pretty interesting that he's really like dipping his toes in the horror genre recently. Like he did The Purge and
oh,
Oh,
was
he
in
was
that?
in
Dipping
that,
just
yeah.
his toes,
Right?
or is he dipping more than his toes? Something.
What are
He's
you
got a full foot in the
suggesting,
water.
Are you
Booster?
I
suggesting
don't know what he's suggesting. I don't want to know either.
What are you
Let's
guys
leave it at
talking
that.
about? I'm just trying to know how committed he is, you know? Like,
Well, he did The Purge and he did Sinister, and I don't know if he's going to be in Sinister 2. Honestly, I would highly doubt it. I think the director for Sinister 2. Oh, this is actually kind of cool. His name is I can't pronounce this. Ciaran Foy, but he's the guy who did Citadel. Dylan.
Oh, we still haven't seen that. We need to.
Yes, it's a one that I've heard is very, very well respected, and actually like pretty scary.
It's like The Raid, but nightmares.
Yes, and that's what sounds cool about it. But you know, Sinister 2, Sinister, the original wasn't the best, so I'm not sure how much hope I have for this second installment.
Might watch it.
And
anyway.
I doubt it as Ethan Hawke. But
You never know. He goes bam out of nowhere. So.
no Ethan, no watch.
moving on to movies that don't need sequels, we have. You guys are
Wow,
gonna,
how do you really feel?
I cannot wait for this reaction. We have Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension.
God damn it! God,
is that the fucking title?
I think you actually made that
God
title up before
damn
you
it.
presented it. You freaking nerd.
God damn it!
It's like the funniest part is that they almost like implied and like hinted like, "Hey guys, we're done," and now they're like, "Psych."
How
Well,
many
they're
times
going
do
to
you think
open up
they're
an
gonna do that,
entirely
though?
other
Because
dimension.
the last one was
movies.
what, the marked ones?
Yeah, I
had
fell
no
asleep in that
idea.
one, and
It was awful.
I'm not even gonna pick it up again.
How many of those movies are there?
I don't know, but there are 2 good ones.
What, the first one?
The first one's okay, and then the
And
third one's great.
Yes,
What
the
about
third,
one's
the,
really
third
good.
one's the best one.
I
The
haven't seen
Japanese
third one.
spin-off was really good.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that one.
The Japanese spin-off, it's called Paranormal Activity Tokyo
Drift.
2 Fast and Furious, 2 Freddy,
That
2
is
Jason.
two Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift references in one cast. Let's keep them coming.
Pretty sure we can just call it
We
cuts
talk
now.
about Fast and Furious almost every episode.
Oh man,
What is it? It's Tokyo Night? Give me a second.
I don't know. I can't remember. Whatever.
If you actually think about
it's
it, I
the
think we've-
Japanese Paranormal Activity. It can't be hard
It
to
is.
find.
It's Tokyo Night, and you know what? It's actually worth watching. It's
Okay.
legitimately. It tries to stick to the canon, which is pretty cool because at that point the canon's all right. And
The witch
it-
stuff.
No, it's just the characters. Like the actual like American characters are referenced in the Japanese
weird.
version.
Cool.
So like it's like they're reading internet articles about that family, kind of.
That's cool.
So it's pretty cool.
Didn't it start out as like an unofficial thing, and then they
Yes.
ended up liking it, so they incorporated it into the storyline?
Yeah, I think so. They because they always try to tie them all together, right?
Yeah.
But Yeah, it's basically just a paranormal movie with a Japanese twist on it. So like your normal ghost that you would imagine in Paranormal Activity have a J-horror spin on it. So it's, you know,
be a
like
girl
little girls in
crawling on
the
the
white
ceiling.
gowns and like, yeah.
With
Which
a
is
white
cool.
nightgown.
I'm on.
But yeah, you know, take it with a grain of salt. It's not going to be the best movie ever made, but it certainly will be better than Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension.
Ghost Dimension.
The scrote dimension.
There's the
there
first
it
part
is.
of the cast.
There it
Sorry.
is.
Yeah.
No, I already snuck one in earlier. Don't worry. We're well past breaking initial wind.
Good. You broke it. Okay.
So yeah, there's that. I didn't even bother looking into it because who cares?
You got me interested though. I want to watch the third one now.
Yes, the third one's amazing, and it's actually
It
by
is
the
really
guys
good.
who did a really. This is what's crazy. The guys did a documentary that's like a legitimate documentary that they swear to God is not fake, and it's like actually part of their argument because people think it's fake. And you guys might have heard of it. It's called Catfish.
Oh, wait. Holy
Are you
shit.
talking about the TV show? Or?
That's them.
Holy shit, that is the guy from Catfish. He's
Isn't that
the dad.
crazy?
Oh my god.
Mind blown.
Because the movie Catfish, part of its allure is that they say this movie isn't based on real events. This movie isn't inspired by real events.
I'm pretty
This movie is
convinced.
100%
I'm pretty
true.
convinced it's fake. But
And I do think it's the fact that they even have to argue it. Don't you think
Yeah.
that's kind of an issue?
yeah.
But and also it doesn't really help their credit when they make fucking Paranormal Activity 3, which is clearly not
Yeah.
inspired.
No,
by
that's
But
not
hey,
real.
they did it right. It's
That wasn't
Paranormal
real?
Activity 3 is definitely worth a watch.
It's good, and
Okay, I'll
that's
check
their
it out.
best movie. I know that we'll talk about this later, but Horror Movie Podcast again, it's one I listen to, which is great.
Speaking of,
Yeah, we'll mention that towards the end, but they talk about it, and one of the guys on there, I can't remember who exactly, actually refuses to watch 3 because he was not happy with the way they sold Catfish and kind of exploited people and made it.
that's fair.
And it's very fair, but and I don't discredit that at all. That's great, and I honestly don't know enough about that to say otherwise. But the movie is actually it's entertaining. The third one, in my opinion, definitely is the best. I saw them all in theaters, I think, and that one really affected me at the time. But let's move on, please. No more paranormal activity.
You hear us, studios? No more Paranormal Activity.
All right.
Yeah, they really care what we think.
You hear us? You hear us
As
on our
they
podcast
swim
here?
in the dollar bills.
I know
right.
that we are the tastemakers here.
They've got on the drawing board and they're like, actually, Horrible Podcast said don't.
Sorry, can't
do
make
it,
another
sorry.
one.
No,
Just erase it.
and they said the same thing on the podcast I love, Horror Movie Podcast, and their review of Paranormal Activity, the Lost Ones or the Marked Ones, is really funny. So check it out. Another movie we could talk about, and we could talk about actually 2 movies in tandem, and we probably all have heard of this, but they're making the Scary Stories movie.
Oh, right, okay.
Scary Stories, the movie, right?
Out of the scary
don't-
stories to tell in the dark.
I'm not very excited about it. What is it?
Scary stories to tell in the dark.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
With
And
This is
I-
a book.
The crazy artwork.
yes,
you know?
unless they're done in that artwork style.
They
No.
will.
Stephen Gamble, right? I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
the artist. That's the reason those books were. That's the only reason
The
those
stories
books
are not
were
that scary.
The
No,
stories-
no, but God bless those illustrations
Yeah,
are
they're
terrifying.
insane.
Still,
And also, yeah, that's great. But as far as the talking about the movie, the direction or the director choice is both cool and disappointing in a way.
Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, that'd be very
would be
Not
disappointing.
impossible to be a
No, I
disappointment.
love Guillermo. But I think it's the guy who did Frankenweenie, which I've heard is really, really
Tim
good.
Burton.
Yeah. I
Did he
don't.
do?
He did the first Frankenweenie. You mean the animated one?
Yes.
I thought that was him.
Maybe I'm wrong then.
I don't think that was Tim Burton, man.
I don't think it was either.
Okay.
Let's look it up.
Was
Anyway, I think that he could be
it the-
good for that.
Is it the guy who did Paranorman? Because seriously, because Paranorman is great.
Right.
That movie's fantastic.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going back to paranormal and
No, Paranorman
Activia.
Activia.
But I definitely think they'll kind of make it more for kids, which it's just okay. I don't see them making like a full on horror movie.
Exactly.
out of
They
it.
shouldn't.
That's why I'm saying it's disappointing that I wish they would, but at the same time,
No.
you know what? Like, if you're going to get somebody who's done a really good kids horror movie, right? Or
Sure, yeah, I think that's fair. Another really good kids horror movie, Monster House.
Martyrs. Yeah.
Has anyone seen Monster House?
I think you and I might have watched that together.
Yeah, I
feel
think
it's
so.
Monster
I've
House.
seen it.
God, that movie is so
hold
good.
that thought.
We should do like kids horror
Hold that
one
thought,
day.
man.
I agree.
That would be
This is
good.
why I think this is so cool. And I was talking about how we're doing these in tandem. Also coming out eventually is probably around the same time as Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is a Goosebumps.
This sounds so good.
And that is by the director of Monster House.
Well, there we go. You know what's cool about this is it's gonna have a person playing R.L. Stein. It's Jack Black playing R.L. Stein.
Goodness
And
gracious.
so it's going to be kind of like funny and scary.
like
I
it.
Take it easy. Is he going to say
think it's
that?
I think it's going to be really good.
I think that sounds really fun.
It basically is like it's supposed to be like R.L. Stein, and he's writing his books, and then they start coming to life around him in the movie.
Oh, Mouth of Madness.
Yeah, exactly.
cool.
Yeah,
Inspiration.
That actually sounds really cool because I remember the Goosebumps TV show. I mean, it's not frightening, obviously, but I loved it as a kid.
Yeah,
I
Scared
loved
me
it.
as a kid. I don't know.
That little spooky dog with the green eyes with the laughter, like.
Are you afraid of the dark though? Just saying.
Have you guys seen?
If they made a movie,
We could do a 90s Kids Will Remember thing, but let's not get into that.
oh
That'd be so much fun. I was gonna say, have you guys seen R.L. Stein's new show on Netflix?
No.
What?
I've never heard of this.
Pretty sure. Yeah, it's almost like a new Goosebumps on.
What's it called? I think I've heard of it. It's called Horror something, right?
It's called. I want to say it's called Horror Stories.
Yes. I have heard of it.
I wish Kelsey was in here because we've been watching it and I already forgot what it's called.
Oh, is that it?
It's legitimately called like Horror Stories or
Yeah,
something.
it's pretty cool. It's pretty fun. Like they have different people come on for each episode, and each episode's kind of like its own little capsule.
On Netflix?
That's how
Yes,
Goosebumps was.
go
too.
check it out. It's pretty fun. I mean, it's more for kids, but I think some of the things there's some genius.
We're
in it.
man children, so yeah, that'll work.
Perfect. The first one is about dolls, and it's pretty flippin' scary. There's lots of cheesy.
That
things.
sounds so
Annabelle?
goosebumpsy. Yeah.
It is, dude. It's totally pulling on. It's totally
All right.
calling back.
Well, I want to get into another one, which is one of the more intriguing ones. It is a remake, and you guys might have heard of this, a remake of Poltergeist.
Ooh,
And it is, oh no, I'm getting things mixed up now.
you goober.
You dummy.
Okay,
Are you giving us fake news?
I'll check myself. Poltergeist. It's first off produced by Sam Raimi, which
Okay.
is
That's a good choice.
cool. But also, this is the one that's going to be directed by the director of Monster House.
God, you freaking blew it.
Okay, I can definitely see that. I mean, I actually haven't actually watched Poltergeist all the way through.
Really?
So,
The ending's the best part.
oh man. But Monster House again is great.
So, do we agree that's a good directorial decision?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we're moving on then. I guess nobody is interested in talking about this remake.
No,
I mean, what more can you say?
Yeah,
Everyone
okay.
just got silent and looked at me like, all right.
See, that's one of those ones
Move
that
along.
strikes me as far as remakes go, where it's like, I'll have to wait and judge
Yeah,
it when I see
right.
it.
There's no telling.
Could be
on that
good,
one.
could be bad.
All right,
be
and
tough to
here's a
address.
couple ones that will be very a huge point of interest for us here. And Michael Daugherty, who did Trick or Treat,
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
is
Trick
coming
or
out with
Treat.
not only Trick or Treat 2,
God damn. Yes.
Yeah.
which is awesome, but this, in my opinion, is even cooler and more intriguing. He's making a Christmas movie called Krampus.
Oh
And Krampus, for those who don't know,
Yes.
is a beast-like folklore mythical creature who is there to punish children who have been bad
Yes,
during
he puts them
Christmas.
in a bag and then
He's
takes
the-
them off and breaks
Yes,
their bones. And
He's the
eats them.
anti-Santa.
He's the anti-Santa.
This is
rules.
amazing.
So this dude, Michael Daugherty, who did
He would be
Trick or Treat's
perfect.
doing a Krampus movie.
That's amazing.
damn.
That's such a good choice.
Please tell
So
me he's
we'll-
just going to go through every major holiday
Right?
and start
Oh man,
knocking
I
them
can't
out.
wait till Thanksgiving.
Labor Day.
Yeah, Thanksgiving, Veterans Day, whatever.
Veterans Day's going to be great.
Earth Day,
Birthday.
Earth
Oh,
Day.
My birthday, buddy.
whose birthday will it
He's
be?
going to make one eventually for everybody's
Everybody's
birthday.
Everybody
okay.
in the world.
Amazing.
But yeah,
Best
let's
director ever.
talk about that for a brief second.
I mean, on the first cast I mentioned Trick or Treat's one of my all-time faves.
Right.
Yep.
It's the best kind of distillation of everything that makes Halloween great.
Absolutely.
And to see him try his hand at it again, it's strange to me that they're saying he's doing this now. I guess is it released for next Halloween?
I think 2015.
Yeah, because I can't imagine that they would release it any time other than
Oh
Halloween.
man, it would be so. I wish we could do it in our Christmas themed episode coming
Yeah.
up.
The
If
Krampus
that-
one? Krampus
Yeah.
might be. Well, I mean, when is?
I mean, I think it's 2015.
Oh, that one's 2015.
Yeah, and I
okay.
think it's going to be released during
Bummer.
Christmas season too.
Well,
which
we
makes
can
sense.
preliminarily review it. We can just say what we think it might be. Can we just do a review on
can do a
Krampus the monster himself because he's awesome?
Yeah, it is. It is. But yeah, that's something we'll definitely discuss in the future, and hopefully next Christmas we'll do it in our Christmas themed cast. Consider assuming
Hells.
we're still there.
Jingle hells, I like it.
So does anybody want to add anything on with that? Michael Daugherty and his whatevers.
Hey, Michael, I'm 100% behind you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Wait, are you talking to him?
Yes, I'm talking to him because I know
He's
he's, going to
actually
be
on
listening.
right now. Didn't you hear him join?
Yeah, I Skyped him in.
Michael?
Good to see you, Michael.
He's in the room.
Jesus
Hey,
Christ.
man. Didn't see you there. Hey, guys, just directing
Spaghetti.
Krampus.
You sound a lot like Bloodster, Michael.
It's really weird. Blue Show's one of those famous voices, you know?
Man, what if we got a Michael Daugherty? Whatever, we'll talk about that later. But on that note, we should wrap up. And I want to say some things about the upcoming episodes as well as give some shout outs. First off, huge thanks and shout out to Jay of the Dead at the Horror Movie Podcast. And again, that's just the Horror Movie Podcast. Very easy name to remember. Mm-hmm. And it is one of our favorites here. In case you don't know what I'm referring to, he gave us a huge plug and a shout out at the end of his latest episode. I think it was episode 33 of the Horror Movie Podcast. So if you haven't checked that out, check it out. He gives us a nice plug. And just check out his podcast in general. It's great.
I think, one of the ones that inspired us to do this too. So.
Oh, for sure. And you know what? I reached out to him towards the beginning of this podcast for help, technical issues and whatnot.
Yep.
And he was so nice to send us very in-depth, very detailed emails.
Yeah, I just want to say personally thank you for that, because it kind of helped us get ready for...
The interview we just did would not have happened without that information that he gave us.
That's what I love about the podcast community. Everybody's like so nurturing. It's such a loving community. So thanks again for plugging us and letting everybody know we exist.
Yes.
And for also helping us.
The technical help was
get
actually
through the technical
very
issues.
helpful.
And I gotta say, Jay, just a shout out to actually listening to us, because it was clear from your plug that you had. So that's
cool.
big to us. Thanks,
very
man.
cool.
And Jay, if you're listening to this now, check out this podcast with wait a second. That's
He will have if he's listening to this far.
He will have already heard the interview.
Hey, thanks for checking it out, Jay. But yeah, thank you. And you should maybe you can plug this interview with Ivan Kavanagh, as it was a really, really great interview. So yeah, thank you so much. And I want to move on the topic of interviews. We also have another interview lined up, which is insane. We're so lucky. But coming up, it'll be coming in mid to early December. We will be interviewing the directors of Resolution and the short Bone Storm from VHS Viral. And that would be Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead.
Exciting.
Oh, yeah.
You guys pumped for that?
Oh,
Can't
my
wait.
God, yes.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really, really fun one. They seem like really down-to-earth, cool guys. Again, so grateful that they're even giving us the time of day. And from talking to them via email and stuff, they just seem like really cool, chill guys. And I think that's going to be a fun one where we just discuss horror movies and kind of shoot the shit.
Do you think they appreciate face value reviews?
Are they buffs, would you say?
I was just really hoping somebody was going to play out that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I say, if we're nothing if not self-deprecating. Somebody's got to do it.
Gotta start somewhere.
So that one's going to come out like somewhere around December 11th or 12th or 10th, something like that. So keep on listening to us every Tuesday. We're going to have a great interview lined up, and we'll have hopefully more after that.
And I think our next podcast should be probably back to the kind of normal grind of it. We'll
Yes.
reviews.
This very next episode is going to be another 3 movies that we review, and just us kind of hanging out and not interviewing someone nervously.
You did great, buddy. I'm proud of you.
That was a great interview.
I'm proud of you, sweetie.
It was
#1,
awesome.
#dibs. If I can give a real quick pitch to, I've been getting back into reading spooky books, as well. Just getting spooky all around in general, really.
Good. Keep it up.
And
Stay spooky.
I'm staying spooky. And I just read one that I'd highly recommend to anybody out there. It's called I Remember You, A Ghost Story and I hope to God that I'm not massacring this name because it's Icelandic. Ursa Sigurdardóttir?
No, that's perfect. I can tell.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, he majored in Icelandic, actually. No, great little book. Terrifying, absolutely creepy, and maybe one of the scariest books I've ever read. But if you're into ghost stories, if you're into kind of the slow burn mysteries behind a child, like something like The Changeling, it's a book along those lines, so definitely check it out.
Was it scarier than Goosebumps?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Definitely check that out. Can you say that one more time? What's the title?
I Remember You, A Ghost Story.
All right. Check that out, guys. Dylan has been talking a lot about it. Sounds awesome. So let's go ahead and end things here. I just want to say thanks again to Ivan Kavanagh for giving us the time of day.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yep. And of course, the only plug he had was watch the fucking Canal.
Please.
If you haven't seen it, watch it. The
It's so
Canal
good.
is
I think we've talked
fantastic.
about it enough. People should have already watched it once, twice, maybe even 3 times.
And we didn't intend to keep this cast spoiler free, but I think we did
It's
really for the
mostly-
most part. So if you listen this far in, you didn't hear too much that would have
Sure.
stopped you from watching it.
If
so.
anything, it should add some intrigue when
Yeah.
you're watching it, some insight. So check it out. And again, I want to reiterate, thank you, Jay of the Dead and Horrorble.
Oh, hey.
Horror Movie Podcast. Thank you, Jay of the Dead. You guys have been helping us out a lot.
Yeah.
We really want you guys as listeners to check them out. That is, again, Horror Movie Podcast. And again, we are on Twitter and email, and you know that by now, so I'm not going to repeat it. We said it earlier in the episode. You can check us out there and send us some thoughts, some critiques, whatever you want. Anything.
Plenty of critique, please.
Yeah, whatever you want. So yeah, as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next Tuesday. And of course, I'll say it again, stay spooky.
Nice little echo.